Jamaica. Make we do the right thing. Make we live good today for a better tomorrow. Talk it out. Don't fight it out. The time by the Ministry of National Security is
6:30.
When the bus the man, I want to watch my son play finals on CVM, you know.
But mums, you can't watch it on CVM website, man.
Score! My son score! My son score! My son score! My son score!
Greatness begins here.
Here at Extreme E. This is unbelievable. Absolute carnage.
Sunday's tragic mass shooting in Linstead, St. Catherine, national outrage has reignited urgent questions about the social systems or lack thereof that leave young people exposed to violence, hopelessness, and criminal influence. As the country mourns, we ask, what are we doing to protect and empower our youth before they become statistics? My guests this evening, Dr. Henley Morgan, social entrepreneur and founder of Agency for Inner City Renewal with deep insights into grassroots transformation, and also Dr. Leakim Samaj, renowned psychologist known for his work on youth development and social behavior. Lead Story begins now. Good evening and thanks for joining us. I'm Nika Lewis. In the wake of the Linstead St. Catherine mass shooting, locals brace for what often follows: reprisals, retaliation, and sometimes a deepening of generational cycles of violence. Experts have long said that these incidents don't happen in isolation. They are symptoms, they say, of systemic neglect, fractured families, and a lack of meaningful social protection for vulnerable youth. This evening we ask, how do we stop the cycle before the next trigger is pulled? What structures must be built, not just to respond to violence, but to prevent it? We're joined on Zoom by Dr. Leakim Samaj, renowned psychologist. He's known for his work on youth development and social behavior. We welcome you, Dr. Samaj, and we are waiting later on in the program for Dr. Henley Morgan. So we begin with you, Dr. Samaj. Welcome.
My pleasure.
Indeed. Well, Dr. Samaj, first, your reaction to that episode of violence that was meted out to a group of people in Commodore District, Linstead, St. Catherine, Sunday.
It's a continuing process. If I had to identify two things that we have a serious problem with in Jamaica, there will be conflict resolution and anger management. You know, yes, we will have differences of opinion. Yes, we will have disputes, but then it rises to the level that you take someone's life, and in some instances, you make it as dramatic as possible. You know, you wipe out an entire group of people. So it almost has become common in Jamaica now. Every now and then, one just goes above the normal, especially when a child gets killed or when more than 2 people get killed. It stands out, but we've been living with this for many years.
Indeed. What would you say are some of the psychosocial or psychological drivers behind especially young people getting involved in these sorts of incidents?
To a large extent, we hate to keep mentioning it, but listen, this society was built on violence. The whole process of enslavement, colonization, coming all the way down. And remember that the two institutions that was built, after slavery as such, the madhouse and the bad house, the general penitentiary and the mental institution. And we have not made serious inroads in transformation as we come forward. Many Jamaicans still believe in corporal punishment. That you beat, if somebody do you something, you do them back something. And you start with your children, the one you say you love. And we justify it. And the reality is that people who grow up under being subjected to corporal punishment, one of 2 things happen. They continue it with even more vengeance, because it never do me nothing. Or, as in my case, I decided from what I experienced at the hands of my mother, that I would never lay a hand on my children. And I've never. So that happens, but I'm in the minority. So a lot of people have been socialized. So the way you settle dispute is by violent means. And it's even in our how we express intimacy. It's in our music. It's in our conversation. We're playing dominoes. It's all about. And then when you add this now in terms of anger management, anger is a feeling, it's a legitimate feeling, but it does not justify the behavior that is oftentimes tied to it. So, and we have not done sufficient things to help our people to really come to grips with these 2 areas, anger management and conflict resolution.
Well, Dr. Samaj, that's the point we're going to hold you to when we get back on Rethinking Social Protection on Lead Story. We take a break. Stay with us.
We want a piece for Jamaica. Yeah. Yo, what are you?
Oh, man, none of that. No, brother, no. I'm not that.
Can I see you ever play ref? No, piggy, I'm not playing.
Yeah, but I look a bad game. No, I said, Pierce, you come from, brother, I want to live good, man. I want to live good, Bridging. No shake on, I can play a little bad, Bridging.
Really have to shake on?
Yeah, man, and no badness, Bridging. Just live good, man.
Come together as one and make the violence done.
It's time.
Welcome to High School Pitchside. We have another fascinating episode for you.
More matches, more big clashes.
Let's talk about some of the big rivalries coming up this week.
More of your favorite features.
And trust me, you won't fall asleep in this history class.
And of course, we always want to hear from you.
Hear from your alma mater's players and coaches in Team Talk.
You know we can't leave you out. So send us your messages on social media and watch us react on FanView.
And you know we love a good little debate, right, Gio? We've got you covered all season long on High School Pitchside.
High School Pitchside, your ultimate guide to all things schoolboy football, Thursdays at 8 p.m. on CVM TV.
Thanks so much for staying with us. We're talking about the social infrastructure and how we prevent retaliatory actions in light of recent happenings like the Commodore mass shooting incident in Linstead, St. Catherine. My guest right now is Dr. Lakim Samaj. He's a renowned psychologist and he's known for his work on youth development and social behavior. We are still awaiting Dr. Morgan. In the interim, before we went to the break, Dr. Samaj, you pointed out two aspects to how Jamaicans function and parts of our personality. One had to do with immense violence. That was something that was probably bequeathed to us from a very vicious past, especially if we go all the way back down the slavery line. But beyond that, you mentioned it's still being perpetuated in our society. We have it in our music and all of that. Why is it so hard for us to give people a second chance?
Well, listen, we have not. Many Jamaicans, in many ways, are attracted to the preachings of the Old Testament, an eye for an eye, that kind of thing, more than the whole preaching of redemption and forgiveness and so on, as you see in the New Testament. We are very selective about what we look at. And it is easy to use negative reinforcement and punishment to settle things. Negative reinforcement, you subject the person to something noxious, and when they behave in the way that you want them to, you relieve them of it. You gently release it, so to speak. And you take the credit, but you're the one that caused the problem to begin with. Punishment, you subject somebody to something noxious so that they bend to your will. It's what we learn. Parents, the average Jamaican parent, those are the two issues that they use in terms of their child rearing practices: negative reinforcement and punishment. So we have never really had a real, genuine campaign, so to speak, to help people to understand, look, there are other ways. The ways of shaping behavior, the way of settling disputes without the results of violence. And then now, when you add to it inducement, breakdown in the family structure as such, and you find that to a large extent, individuals, one of the data suggests that the single most powerful antidote to a boy joining a gang is a father in the house. A father figure who he has to answer to, shapes his behavior and so on. So many times it is the negative elements of gangs and so on which starts to attract young males, especially those who are not gainfully employed.
Yes.
And there's a saying, that if he can't earn it, he's going to hunt it.
Ah. So when we're rethinking, go ahead, doctor.
No, and then clearly, when you hunt in a pack, if you notice that much of these activities are packs, there's a group of quote-unquote gunmen who invade a community or invade a house. It's rarely one individual as such. So it's almost the way animals hunt and attract, make sure that the things that they want. Again, the other piece of it, though, when you have an underworld community, as we hear about people involved in, I'm not saying that we have no idea what was the source of this.
Yes.
When you're involved in gang behavior or not just scamming behavior, any of those kind of behaviors, there's no way out alive. So once you have a falling out with individuals, then you know that the only way out is death. So that to a large extent, and we talk about these things lightly and loosely. So it has become a significant part of the fabric of our society in terms of how we settle disputes.
Agreed. But when we're rethinking social protection, the breakdown of the community structures and family support, what's the role of education, mentorship, and employment in any form of prevention?
Absolutely. Well, those things are critical part of it. First of all, the whole socialization process. It begins the home. One of the most powerful factors that shape how a child develops, the most powerful thing is parents' attitude to education. I've done the research, the data is there. Most people who are successful in life as such, they can harken back to a teacher or somebody who saw more in them than they saw in themselves. Those early forces. The extracurricular activities in school are the things that help to draw the energies, and people can shape their interests and to see what else they are good at and what can be done. So if you notice that the latest figure coming out of the the exams, the CSEC exam, 19% of Jamaicans passed 5 subjects, inclusive of maths and English. That means that 81% didn't. So a lot of people coming of age, coming out of high school, going into the work world, are ill-equipped and ill-prepared for gainful work within that area. So what happens?
Dr. Samaj, I'm going to ask you to just pause briefly on that because we're going to take a break and we'll be right back to continue.
It's the dawn of a new day, and the Ministry of Economic Growth and Job Creation is shaping a future filled with opportunities and limitless possibilities. The government is building the foundation for a thriving tomorrow through strategic billion-dollar investments that fuel industries, facilitate an environment for job creation, and empower communities to rise. We are transforming Jamaica with world-class sustainable infrastructure, creating a nation where every Jamaican can achieve more and build a lasting legacy. The Ministry of Economic Growth and Job Creation, investing today, building a future for tomorrow.
From first steps on campus to graduation day, we've been with you through every chapter. Introducing the new face of the Students' Loan Bureau, a fresh identity designed for your future. The bold step forward with a fresh look for a future-focused mission, still rooted in trust, service, and possibility, while continuing to uphold our core values of integrity, accountability, respect, teamwork, excellence, and customer focus. It reflects who we are today, modern, resilient, and evolving with the people we serve. This isn't just a new logo, it's a renewed commitment. The Students' Loan Bureau, building bridges, transforming dreams.
Welcome back to Lead Story. We're talking social protection and rethinking social protection in our communities. But Dr. Samaj, before the break, we discussed the role of education in all of these things, in how we're reimagining social protection. You may continue.
Yes, so education is a very powerful re-socializing process, because if you are not subject to that formal, then the informal socialization process of the community. And the other model that attends to this whole process is violent crime as a disease. The same way that you treat other communicable diseases, you look at how violent crime can be transmitted. It takes root in a community, and things that have to disrupt the transmission, so that you have to get people to be able to see other forms of behavior, other way out. Because we're talking about the situation now involving the perpetrators and also the victims. Now, the victims have a long-term problem, especially the children. The whole post-traumatic stress disorder. I'm sure many children in that community have now regressed back to wetting bed, afraid to go out of their house, don't want to go on the street, afraid to go to school. So the entire community is impacted, as it would be if there was some contagious disease. So we really need to address it at all levels. And not to mention now reprisals.
Yes.
Those who have some idea as to who may have done it, and to say, well then look, I will now, get justice, so to speak. So the cycle more than likely will continue.
But how must the government and civil society reimagine social protection policies then?
Well, all hands on deck, because in Jamaica, it's always 9-day wonder, and then until something else takes it off the front page, it has to be an ongoing process. The whole thing, what do we do? And we've heard talk about this. How do you rebuild communities? How do you make sure persons have access to the means of production? How do you provide the training and the access and the resources that individuals have options without having to be tempted now to go into the underworld, so to speak, just to seek a living. So it must be an ongoing process. Media has to be a part of it. The church, the community, all elements. And I don't think we talk about it. We talk about it when it flares up, but then oftentimes, some years ago, I spoke with the Minister of Education, and I talked about a program where we would look at every school at that time. 15 years ago, I estimated had at least 15 boys who were in the departure lounge. So unless you start doing something to re-socialize them, to pull them back in, you could see where they're heading. I was told that they have no budget for anything like that. I said, you don't do it now at the high school level. At the school level, all you have done is pushed it to the Ministry of Justice and National Security.
My gosh.
And that's where we are now.
Real world solutions. Let's talk a little about those, because we need those. What's working, what's not working, and what must change now?
The intervention at all levels. Look, parenting is probably the single most important factor. And we're given lip service to that, parenting, because that's where the process starts. The school, many of the teachers are overburdened in terms of how much time they spend on discipline, because so many children are coming to school unsocialized, so to speak. So we really need that we call Parent Teachers Association, that link between parents and teachers in terms of building. We used to have something called Neighborhood Watch, whereby communities look out for each other. You know, you identify if there's some communities take it to an extreme. You can't even drive through there because they remove the grates across the road. They put barriers. Any strange person coming into the community is asked to identify themselves and to give reasons for why they're there. That's an extreme. But the other components where individual communities more affluent now will have cameras. We talk about the Jamaica Eye. I'm not sure how well that process has really taken on, whereby security cameras can be fed into a sort of a general pool, so people have access to the information. We can see what is happening at the early stage. If something has happened, we can go for the footage. And every now and then, there have been situations where crimes have been solved because somebody saw something on a camera. So this piecemeal, we need all of these things have to be that if you have understanding that there's a high chance of you being identified, arrested and convicted, that could have some level of deterrent. But if you feel that, look, nothing will come out of it, nobody will see me, I'll never be caught. So all of these pieces have to be treated, have to be dealt with.
Well, Dr. Samaj, I mean, you've done the work with young people. You know how much of society clicks. Where are the gaps between the desires of the young people, the needs of society, and the intervention that is necessary to make the change?
At every level. 2 years ago, I had the opportunity to speak with some young men at the Hilltop Juvenile Facility.
Yes.
And there's a line I've always wanted to use with them. And I said, now that I have your attention, because look, these were many young men who were convicted of crimes and they wouldn't be going anywhere for a while. And the idea of using those kinds of situations to re-socialize, to get them really seeing other options. It has been said, we've talked about having a school system, a component of our school system. Many times these behaviors are noted quite early. Much of it starts as bullying and so on. And we need to be able to pull some students out of the regular school system and provide them with a greater socialization inputs, because we're seeing the antisocial and destructive behavior become the dominant component for them. But we talk about these things and very little happen in terms of making sure that we put something in place until the next one rise up, and then we talk, and then it's dropped because it is not sexy anymore.
So our culture is part of our problem as well, because when we talk even about the prison system, we're looking at the fact, Dr. Samaj, that in a way, we're still seeing some amount of the anger that we're talking about individually and among groups, because it is felt that if you give them a certain hard time, then they will change somehow and come back into society and, I don't know, reintegrate?
Not really, because you see, you go to prison, as punishment, not for punishment. And the purpose of the prison should have some, first of all, training component, rehabilitation component. But for many, the situation is really a training school where they get higher level of training in terms of certain activities and how to perpetuate things. And we have situations where persons, even from prison, are able to continue destructive behaviors. So the whole process needs rethinking, and with the appropriate budgeting allocated to make a decision that we also want to talk how we're going to make Jamaica the place to raise children and to do business and to live. That's talk. If we're not putting things in place on the ground to raise the level of not just education, socialization towards productive, non-destructive behavior, the way we settle disputes, the way we deal with each other.
So let's imagine that the government and the stakeholders are watching right now and they are bent on making some of these changes. What's the first, most effective move that you'd tell them to make?
I believe that we need to have a situation where all the stakeholders, they're individuals working in the communities, they're people in NGOs, they're religious organizations, there are a host of people who are doing their small part. We need to get all hands on board to identify, now here's what we need to do. There are large numbers of young men, especially men,